For example, in Denmark, having very, very tight relationships with your opposite gendered friends is very normal. Like hugging, even sitting on their lap would sometimes be considered normal.
For me, it's a no-no.
And if you're not religious as a person and you meet someone, you're in love with them, they just seem great, and then they bring up conversion, run.
So they might say, oh, you're so lucky you live here. Like, this is very common. Yeah.
I'm so lucky I live here. Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. I'm Julie.
I'm Jiayi.
And today we're going to be talking about what we think are 10 topics that every international couple, as well as just your regular couple, should talk about before determining if you will stay together long term. I will add, these are things that we talked about in the first couple of weeks of meeting each other online. Yeah. So yeah, if you're not already a subscriber of ours, I hope you'll consider staying with us and becoming a subscriber. And now let's get into the video. So this question might seem a little bit silly to most people, but it's a way more diverse topic than you probably could have ever anticipated. Right now we live in the age of the open relationship.
Maybe not here. I mean, open relationship is not very popular here.
Yeah, but in the West, it's definitely a growing group of people. And you have a bunch of options online. And when you come from two different cultures, this conversation is just becoming more and more important for you to have. So we have compiled a list of the areas that you and your partner should probably round off. Like, everything is kind of on there.
It's getting kind of complicated.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell what is cheating.
Yeah, also just because it is very individual. For example, between our cultural norms, the gap is pretty big. We agree a lot, but the average Danish Chinese person probably would not agree.
Yeah, that's just us agreeing on stuff.
Yeah, because I would say, for example, in Denmark, having very, very tight relationships with your opposite gendered friends is very normal. Like hugging, even sitting on their lap would sometimes be considered normal.
For me, it's a no-no.
He would never be okay with it. Which is fine. I would not be okay with it either. Yeah. But, for example, I think a really good clip to showcase this is a short clip that kind of went viral of someone doing street interviews with Japanese people, of them talking about prostitution, where they are being asked, is that cheating if your partner goes to someone like that? And Japanese people on average are like, nah, that's completely fine.
風俗に行くことは浮気かどうかっていう、どう思いますか？
浮気じゃない。浮気じゃない。気持ちの浮気は嫌なんですけど、まあ性欲の浮気は別に勝手にしてくれるんやったらいいかな。一般人と連絡取れる間でやられるよりは、店でちゃんとしてもらった方が。
浮気ではない。隠さなければ浮気じゃない。浮気するなら風俗に行けって言ったことあります。金払えばいいよって言ったことあります。新しいね、出会いじゃなくてお金払って行ってるなら別にいい。
And you just see the comments being people in shock, but that's a part of culture shock. You won't share your views necessarily, so keep an eye on it. Definitely talk it through. Don't be scared to set boundaries and listen to what your partner is saying.
Yeah, just don't ignore it because you don't know how big of a difference.
No. So when we talk about religion, we obviously have a lot of different ones. You have Christianity, Buddhism, you have Islam, Hinduism, Judaism. The list kind of goes on and on. I know it isn't huge here in China as a conversation topic. It is abroad. And to most people, they'll have some kind of relationship with religion, whether it's lifestyle or just cultural. So knowing where a future partner stands on this is insanely important. So I would honestly just keep it very, very simple. Start out with, are you religious? And if the answer is yes, you go from there. I am religious.
I'm not.
So very early on, we kind of had to set the parameters of what my religion would mean and what it could mean to our future life together. For example, in terms of conversion, if you, as a person who's religious, really care about your partner sharing your religion, date within your religion. There's plenty of people who share your religious point of view. Conversion being forced upon anyone is not okay. It's not acceptable unless that person already was considering it. But if it's out of love, it's manipulative a little bit.
Yeah, that's not acceptable.
No, and if you're not religious as a person and you meet someone, you're in love with them, they just seem great, and then they bring up conversion, run.
Why don't they just stay in their religion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in our relationship, we've had a lot of talks about it. You were really...
Yeah,
he was amazing at asking about it.
Yeah, I can't say anything without investigation, so I gotta know what it is.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I want to make it very clear, I was very, very upfront about being Christian. It's not something I hide in my life. But I'm also very neutral to other people's religious standing, as long as you can accept me practicing my religion my own way. Remember to have those conversations so it doesn't jump on you. If this person suddenly starts changing what they've been saying, which does happen, where the person suddenly goes like, now you are married, and they start pushing certain agendas a little bit, leave. That person did not respect you, and just because you're together doesn't mean you owe them changing who you are or what you do in your life. Yeah.
And then food. In China, food is a big thing. It's probably the biggest thing. It's your everyday life. If you can't eat with your partner, I don't think your relationship would last.
No, to Chinese people, this matters a lot. I think to Asian people in general, food is such a huge like bonding moment.
Yeah. Like family gathering, like friends, you eat together.
It's the social activity.
That's part of you getting along. Yeah. It's an even bigger problem when you date internationally.
Yeah.
Because people from different culture background eat different food. Yeah. And people from some religious people don't eat certain food.
Yeah, they can't.
Yeah. And you need to respect it.
Just like people who are Buddhists here don't eat meat at all.
Yeah. And some people, people from different parts of the world have different allergy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't eat curry. He can't. No, he needs to go out to eat curry.
Well, I don't hate curry, but I don't love curry, so it's fine.
So, when you're dating internationally, it's very important to be aware that gender roles is a huge topic. It varies a lot from culture to culture, and also just from person to person. We're all our own individual kind of human. It's very important to really sit down and discuss these things like cleaning, household chores, financial responsibilities. If you want kids, what is your expectation in that regard? Like, for example, in our situation, like, did you want a stay-at-home wife? Is that what you expected of me? Like, I really felt the need to discuss this as a woman. I think it's very natural to be very concerned about gender roles because we tend to be victimized the most by them. And I think, unfortunately, there's also the aspect of stereotyping that people expect that if I just get a woman from another country, then she's magically gonna be way more family orientated. That's a thing I hear a lot on 90 Day Fiance.
Yeah, which is
ridiculous.
Yeah, sometimes it's completely wrong.
But yeah, it's very important to stay a little bit on guard about, especially right now where you definitely see more Asian fetishism come out.
Yeah.
We will probably make a video in the future about how to spot people who just have a fetish for your nationality, because that is a very tricky thing.
Yeah.
And that's regardless of which nationality you have. There are people who just wanna be with you because you're different from them. So yeah. When you're dating internationally, politics can make or break your relationship, and it can really make you get to know someone so much better. A lot of people that date outside their own ethnic bubble do hold some racial or sexist viewpoints. And you really don't want to find out about that too late down the line. That can be a very, very uncomfortable wake-up call.
Yeah.
And funny enough, we bonded a lot about politics.
Yeah. Like, you might get tricked if someone said, oh, I have foreign friends. I'm not racist. Yeah.
But I just don't see race.
But you really need to talk about it.
Especially their viewpoints about, I would say, gender equality. So women's rights, especially. Abortion is another very good telltale sign. If men especially are vehemently against it.
Abortion leads to a lot of guilt, a lot of regret. For a lot of people, it actually opens the door to a demon of depression and death.
And hold no like limitations on it. Another one I think is super duper important. This is for everyone. What are their views about immigrants in their own country? Because one of you will be one. And I have found that a lot of people who date someone who's from abroad are very anti-immigrant. Even though you might be the temporary exception, one day you guys might have a fight. Or you guys go through marital or relationship problems, and then suddenly you might not be their favorite person anymore.
Well, you can go back to your country.
Before you talk about it, you might think, oh, this person's dating me, so she or he can't be racist. Or can't hate my home country. Yeah. Which happen all the time.
Reality is, if they look down on your country as a whole, internally they also look down on what your nationality is.
Yeah.
And you can easily be caught with someone who ends up having that, like, I gave you the ticket to freedom.
Yeah.
Oh, you're just with me for a green card.
I know what you're up to. It's obvious you want a green card.
They might say, oh, you're so lucky you live here. Like, this is very common. Yeah.
I'm so lucky I live here.
You're with me just for green card.
Oh yeah. If you, like me, end up having to leave your country and your family behind, your in-laws matter so much. And in general, if you're in a mixed relationship where you don't share culture, their support or lack thereof can make or break your relationship.
You were worried because, Chinese in-laws are quite
notorious.
Yeah.
Every Chinese friend I have ever had was like, no. Are you gonna be okay? They were legitimately worried. So when they heard that me and your mom and your dad actually had a good first conversation, they were like, "Oh."
Were they surprised?
Kinda, yeah. Before you meet them, though, it is important that you set some boundaries. It's important to have boundaries with your parents. It's even more important for you as a couple to have boundaries with your in-laws and your parents about how much they can step into your relationship. We set ours before I talked to his parents. So one of my main concerns was that I know in some cultures your in-laws might end up living with you.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's good for your marriage. I know it wouldn't be good for me, so that was a big no. I told
I
them
agree.
that from
Yeah, my parents agree.
Yeah.
That's
Thank God.
not good.
I would love to hang out with him a bunch. We just don't need to live together.
Yeah, it's not necessary.
No. Yeah, the other things are mostly like, it's your responsibility to control your family. It's my responsibility to control mine.
If your spouse and your parents don't get along, most of the time it's your fault.
And I think that goes into like our last enormous boundary. Don't badmouth your partner.
Yeah, you should be careful.
Yeah, obviously if you need advice from your parents and you know your parents are like open-minded and kind of chill, you can talk about that you're having some issues in your relationship, but every time you have a fight, don't run to your parents and tell them, oh, I just hate her or him.
He's jobless. He's boring. He has no sympathy. Now he's talking to dirty, nasty skanks online.
Because your parents love you. And they're not gonna be cool with anyone treating their baby badly, so...
Yeah.
So at that point, you've caused them to dislike your partner.
Because from your parents' perspective, from your friend's perspective, they will probably only focus on the negative things.
Yeah.
If you only tell them the negative things.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're not in this relationship and they don't know those happy moments.
Where will you live is so difficult because someone will have to move before you decide, and to help you decide you need to be so realistic, because at the end of the day, like, your relationship can't just run on romance forever. So our suggestions of what you should focus on, I should say, would be visa requirements. Sometimes one person just can't get that visa. Financial obligations. Does one person own a house? Does someone have kids from a previous marriage? And then it's job opportunities. How difficult will it be to have a job? Does one of you have degrees that can be used in the other country, or is someone further along in their career? It's super important.
Yeah, and also you need to know like how their healthcare system works.
Yeah.
Will you get the right treatment when you need it, or how their law work, like their immigration law, their tax law.
Or for example, let's say you're a same-sex couple.
Yeah.
Are you accepted in society?
In some country, you're not allowed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you just don't have the same legal protection.
Yeah. Or safety is very important.
Gender-based violence, racially based violence.
Yeah, it varies a lot in different countries.
And remember, when you look into this, you guys not being the same ethnic origin will make this vary a lot.
Yeah.
I know people don't talk about this, but there are just certain mixes that get a lot of attention. And I think in general, if you're very obviously a mixed couple, you're more susceptible to hate crimes, unfortunately. Another obvious one is obviously also, does one of you want to leave? And if no one wants to move, you're in a very tough spot, I gotta say. You might have to sit down, see if you can find a compromise, obviously, but you also need to maybe say, should we then find someone who's better suited for us? Do we need to part ways, essentially?
Yeah. And also, if you want your spouse to move to your country, don't lie to your spouse.
Yeah.
Don't lie about the reality.
For most international couples, I think it's fair to say that marriage will inevitably be a part of your relationship at some point. It's more of a question of the when, the where, and the how. So when do you want to get married? I think it's very healthy, if that's your goal in life, that you want to be married one day, to set yourself like a timeline, like how long do I actually want to be in a relationship before that has to kind of be in the picture. Obviously the where, which country. Do you want to do just one wedding? Or do you want to do 2 weddings if you're from 2 different countries? I think that's a big thing. And the how, like, this is a huge question. Like, if you're having one wedding, are you mixing your cultures together? If you have separate religions, do you follow into one of them, or do you do both? Like, it's something to consider. I find that sometimes people forget to inform their partners about the wedding traditions of their country to the fullest. It's not fair.
I don't feel like this is a wedding that's incorporating me. I just feel like I'm here.
What happened?
TJ, no one's letting me know what's going on. I'm really frustrated.
To leave your partner in the dark about how they'll be married.
Yeah, and when they're preparing for the wedding, they start having all kinds of issues.
Yeah. So I think there's a few things to note when we talk about weddings, especially since we're a Chinese-Danish couple. Marriage money, that topic, if you end up with a Western person, might be a bit difficult for them to accept, I gotta say. For most Western men, they'll be like, I'm not paying that. If you, like, for example, if when we planned to get married, went to my dad and was like, oh, I'm gonna give you and your wife money to marry Julie, I think
your parents would be so offended.
They would be kind of like, WTF.
Yeah.
And that's just a difference in culture. So if that's super important for you, just be aware of that. So I just want to start out by prefacing that it's completely fine and valid to want to have kids. It's also perfectly great to not want to have kids. You should not compromise in this. No one should be forcing you to lean in one direction or another. And I think this is an area where you and your partner actually need to be in agreement. Don't sacrifice this area for anyone. But yeah, I think it's important to go into this conversation with the mindset of like, they're not wrong for what they want, and I'm definitely not wrong for what I want. So I think just rip off that band-aid and go, do you want kids? Okay, that's a yes and no question. If it's yes, how many? When? Then you need to start talking about parenting. Like, how were you raised? How was I raised? Is there stuff you want to bring from what you were raised with? What do I want to bring from what I was raised with?
There's so many details.
So much. And be realistic. Obviously, none of us are perfect people. So even though you have all of these ambitions, you're not going to be capable of doing all of that, and that's fine. We talked about kids super early because I knew I wanted kids.
Yeah, I didn't know until I met her.
No, but he's the one that talked about it first.
Yeah.
And he was like, our kids will be beautiful. Depending on where you and your partner are from, your living standards may vary quite a lot. And I think it's important to temper expectations of both sides, figure out what is the living standard, what are the norms. For example, in our situation, I was aware that I'm from Scandinavia, so there's certain things that are a little bit different here.
I've never had a big garden or something.
Yeah, like
in a city like this.
Even though I really want cows, it's probably not going to happen in our apartment. But you want to have that conversation. You want to be upfront. Like, this is how we live here. Do not be judgmental. Don't do it. It's okay to acknowledge that's different, but it is what it is at the end of the day. Everywhere is different. So let's say you meet someone who's from a developing country and you're from a already developed country. Your income might seem extremely high to that person. Remember to be honest about what that gets you in your economy. All right, that was all that we had to tell you guys for this time at least. I hope you guys found our video useful and that you can take some of these suggestions of things to talk about and possibly go have a conversation with your partner. Please remember that this is not a test of your partner. This is not about the right answer. It's just about having a very honest heart-to-heart conversation so you guys can really feel out your relationship and see if this is right for both of you. And hopefully you guys have a really positive outcome. And
don't interrogate your partner. Talk to them.
Have an honest conversation with your partner, and then we hope that you guys have the best of luck with your love lives and that we see you again for our next video.
Bye.
Bye.